Thousands of warriors stood frozen. Across the dry grasslands of southern Africa, a much larger enemy force stretched across the horizon. Their shields formed a wall. Their numbers seemed endless. Every instinct said the battle was already lost. But then something strange happened. The smaller army began moving. Not in chaos, not in fear, in perfect silence. Young warriors sprinted outward to the flanks. Veterans advanced through the center. Reserve fighters disappeared behind the formation like shadows. The enemy commanders watched, confused, then worried, then terrified, because the men facing them were not fighting the way warriors had fought for generations. They were hunting. Minutes later, the battlefield became a trap. The enemy line collapsed inward. Warriors appeared from both sides. Escape routes vanished. What had looked like an easy victory transformed into a slaughter. By sunset, the larger army no longer existed. News of the battle spread across the region like wildfire. Villagers whispered his name. Chiefs feared it. Warriors dreamed of serving him. Enemies prayed they would never face him. His name was Shaka, a man who transformed a small kingdom into a military power, a leader who rewrote the rules of warfare, a commander whose innovations would be studied long after his death. But the greatest mystery was not how he won battles. The greatest mystery was how a boy born with almost nothing became the most feared military leader Southern Africa had ever seen. And how did one man change warfare forever? For centuries, warfare across much of Southern Africa followed familiar patterns. Small kingdoms and chiefdoms competed for land, cattle, and influence. Conflicts erupted regularly, but most battles were limited in scale. Warriors carried long throwing spears. Armies often exchanged volleys from a distance. Casualties could be relatively low compared to the brutal wars that would come later. Victory was important. Survival was even more important. The landscape itself shaped this world. Rolling grasslands stretched across the horizon. Rivers cut through fertile valleys. Communities depended on livestock, especially cattle, which represented wealth, status, and power. A successful raid could transform a kingdom. A failed one could destroy it. Political alliances shifted constantly. Chiefs rose. Chiefs fell. New leaders emerged. But warfare remained constrained by tradition. Most armies fought according to accepted rules. Most commanders thought within familiar limits. Few imagined warfare could be completely reinvented. And then a child was born who would challenge everything. A child whose early life gave no hint of the storm he would unleash. But historians rarely talk about the shocking truth surrounding his childhood. Shaka was not born into comfort. He was born into rejection. His mother, Nandi, became involved with a Zulu chief named Senzangakona. Their relationship caused controversy. When Shaka was born, many questioned his legitimacy. The insults began early. The humiliation followed him everywhere. Children mocked him. Adults dismissed him. Stories tell of a young boy growing up as an outsider, carrying the weight of rejection long before he carried a weapon. Eventually, he and his mother found themselves pushed to the margins. Exile became their reality. For Nandi, every day was a struggle. For Shaka, every insult became fuel. He watched. He listened. He remembered. The pain hardened him. The humiliation sharpened him. While other boys dreamed of acceptance, Shaka developed something else: determination. The bond between mother and son grew powerful. Nandi became his protector, his guide, his source of strength in a world that seemed determined to reject them. Years later, people would fear the name Shaka. But before fear came suffering. Before greatness came loneliness. And before conquest came a lesson that would define his life forever. Never depend on the mercy of others. The young exile was learning a truth that would eventually reshape an entire region. And then fate placed him in the service of a man who recognized his potential. A man who would unknowingly help create a military revolution. This is where the story becomes stranger. Shaka entered the service of Dingiswayo, the influential leader of the Mthethwa Confederation. For the first time, the young warrior found himself in an environment where talent mattered more than status. And talent was something Shaka possessed in abundance. He stood taller than many of his peers. He was physically powerful, fast, disciplined, relentlessly determined. While others accepted military traditions, Shaka questioned them. Why fight at a distance? Why allow enemies opportunities to regroup? Why stop pursuing victory when complete destruction was possible? These questions followed him everywhere. Dinjaswayo noticed. The young warrior's intelligence was impossible to ignore. His courage earned respect. His leadership attracted followers. Gradually, Shaka's reputation grew. He distinguished himself during campaigns. He observed experienced commanders. He studied strengths. He studied weaknesses. Most importantly, he studied war itself. Every battle became a classroom. Every victory revealed opportunities. Every failure revealed flaws. And around this time, a shocking realization began forming in his mind. The problem was not the warriors. The problem was the system. Traditional warfare was limiting what armies could achieve. And then Shaka made a decision that changed everything. The weapon looked simple, almost ordinary, but it would alter the course of military history. For generations, warriors relied heavily on long-throwing spears. These weapons allowed combat from a distance. But Shaka saw a weakness. Distance protected the enemy. Distance reduced decisiveness. Distance prolonged battles. So he introduced something different, a shorter stabbing spear. Its design forced warriors into close combat. It demanded aggression. It demanded courage. It demanded commitment. According to tradition, the weapon became known as the Iklwa, named after the sound it supposedly made when pulled from a wound. The change shocked many warriors. Some resisted. Some doubted him. But Shaka was not interested in tradition. He was interested in victory. The spear was only the beginning. He modified shield tactics. Warriors learned to use large shields not merely for protection, but as offensive tools. They could hook enemy shields aside, create openings, close distance rapidly. Suddenly combat became personal, violent, decisive. Enemies accustomed to fighting from range found themselves trapped in brutal, close quarters engagements. The psychological effect was enormous. Fear spread quickly. Stories spread even faster. And at roughly the moment many believed Shaka had already transformed warfare, he unveiled something even more revolutionary, something that would turn armies into living weapons. And what happened next shocked everyone. The innovation was not a weapon. It was an idea. And ideas can be more dangerous than spears. Shaka understood that battles were rarely won by strength alone. They were won by movement, coordination, timing, the ability to control chaos. From that understanding emerged one of the most famous battlefield formations in military history, the buffalo horn. Imagine an enormous beast charging across the plains. Its horns stretch outward. Its head drives forward. Its body follows behind. That image became a battlefield strategy. The chest formed the center. These warriors engaged the enemy directly. They pinned opponents in place and prevented escape. The horns raced around both flanks. Fast-moving units swept outward before curling inward behind the enemy. Meanwhile, the loins remained in reserve. Fresh warriors waited for the perfect moment. If the enemy broke through, the reserves responded. If victory was near, they delivered the final blow. The result was devastating. Enemies suddenly found themselves surrounded. Retreat routes disappeared. Confusion turned into panic. Panic turned into disaster. Entire armies collapsed. Commanders who believed they were winning discovered they were already trapped. Across southern Africa, rival leaders struggled to understand what was happening. They were facing an enemy who seemed to fight according to entirely different rules. But the formation alone was not enough. To make it work, Shaka needed something even more powerful, a war machine. And this is where the story takes another unexpected turn. Shaka transformed military service into a way of life. Young men entered age-based regiments. Training became relentless. Discipline became absolute. Warriors marched extraordinary distances. They learned endurance. They learned coordination. They learned obedience. Mistakes carried consequences. Success earned honor. Over time, individual fighters became components of something larger. A professional military culture emerged. Logistics improved. Information traveled faster. Command structures became more efficient. Even appearance mattered. Uniform shields and regimental identities created unity. Pride became a weapon. Psychology became a weapon. Reputation became a weapon. Before battles even began, enemies often heard stories. Stories of impossible marches. Stories of undefeated regiments. Stories of warriors who never stopped advancing. Fear arrived long before the army itself. Shaka understood that victory often begins in the mind. By the time his warriors appeared on the horizon, many opponents were already defeated psychologically. And then came the revelation that changed the direction of the entire story. Shaka did not simply create a stronger army. He changed the very rules of warfare. For generations, kingdoms measured power differently. After Shaka, military effectiveness became the standard by which rulers were judged. The entire region began transforming, and the consequences would be enormous. The conquests came quickly, then faster, then almost relentlessly. Kingdom after kingdom found itself facing a force unlike anything seen before. One battle followed another. A rival chief assembled warriors and prepared for victory. His scouts reported favorable numbers. His confidence grew. Then Shaka's formations appeared. The center advanced. The horns spread outward. The trap closed. By sunset, the chief's army had ceased to exist. Word spread. Fear spread with it. Some leaders chose resistance. Others chose submission. Many chose flight. Entire communities relocated. Political maps changed. Old alliances shattered. New powers emerged. This period would later become associated with massive regional upheaval. Refugees moved across vast distances. New kingdoms formed beyond Shaka's reach. Some leaders adapted his methods. Others built states specifically to survive the changing world. The effects extended far beyond the Zulu Kingdom itself. One victory led to another. Each conquest increased resources. Each conquest increased manpower. Each conquest increased prestige. Soon Shaka was no longer leading a growing kingdom. He was shaping an empire. Imagine standing in a distant village, weeks away from the nearest battlefield, and hearing rumors. A king has fallen. Another army destroyed. Another territory absorbed. At first, the stories seem exaggerated. Then more travelers arrive. The same reports. The same warnings. The same name. Shaka. For many people, that name became synonymous with inevitability. Yet the more powerful he became, the more dangerous his position grew. Because success creates enemies, and absolute power creates even more. But what happened? Around the height of his power remains one of the most controversial chapters of his life, and it changed how many people viewed him forever. The death of his mother, Nandi, shattered him. The woman who had endured exile beside him. The woman who had believed in him when few others did. The woman whose suffering had shaped his determination. She was gone. The grief was immense. And according to many historical accounts, the consequences were severe. Shaka's behavior became increasingly harsh. Mourning policies reportedly affected thousands. Punishments became more extreme. Fear deepened throughout the kingdom. Supporters saw a grieving son consumed by loss. Critics saw a ruler becoming dangerously ruthless. The truth may contain elements of both. Separating fact from legend remains difficult. Stories surrounding Shaka grew larger with every passing year. Some accounts were exaggerated. Others may contain genuine memories preserved through oral tradition. What is clear is this: the ruler who inspired loyalty also inspired fear. The military genius who built a powerful kingdom imposed tremendous burdens on those around him. The cost of greatness became impossible to ignore, and behind palace walls, dangerous thoughts were beginning to form. Thoughts of betrayal, thoughts of survival, thoughts that would soon end the reign of the most feared man in southern Africa. Few conquerors expect death from within. They look outward, toward enemies, toward rivals, toward invading armies. Shaka's greatest threat stood much closer. In 1828, the ruler who had defeated so many enemies was betrayed. His half-brothers, including Dingaan, became central figures in a conspiracy against him. The details remain debated. The outcome does not. The assassination succeeded. The man who had transformed warfare. The man who had reshaped an entire region. The man whose name inspired fear across southern Africa. fell not on a battlefield, but at the hands of those closest to him. There was no glorious final charge, no epic last stand, no victorious farewell, only betrayal, a sudden ending to one of history's most extraordinary military careers. Yet death did not erase his influence. If anything, it amplified it, because empires can fall, kings can die, but ideas survive. And Shaka's ideas were already spreading. His military innovations influenced generations of leaders. His emphasis on discipline, mobility, coordination, and aggressive maneuver warfare echoes principles studied in military institutions today. Historians continue debating aspects of his life. Some view him as a visionary strategist. Others emphasize the suffering associated with his rule. Most agree on one point: he changed history. Few military leaders fundamentally alter how war is fought. Fewer still accomplish it while rising from exile and humiliation. Shaka did both. His story is not simply about conquest. It is about transformation. A rejected boy became a feared commander. A small kingdom became a regional power. Traditional warfare became something entirely different. Even now, nearly 2 centuries later, his name continues to provoke discussion, admiration, debate, curiosity, because Shaka forces us to confront a difficult question. Can history's greatest innovators be separated from the human cost of their achievements? The answer remains as complex as the man himself, and that complexity is precisely why the world still remembers him. If this story changed the way you see African history, then remember this: many of Africa's greatest stories were never given the attention they deserved. 4 generations, extraordinary leaders, empires, warriors, inventors, and kingdoms were reduced to footnotes or ignored entirely. Yet their impact helped shape the world we live in today. Shaka Zulu is one of those figures. His military innovations still influence discussions about leadership, discipline, battlefield organization, and strategic thinking. His story reminds us that some of history's most influential ideas emerged far from the places most history books focus on. Here at Dark African Chronicles, the mission is simple: to bring these forgotten stories back into the light, to uncover the leaders, battles, kingdoms, and legends that changed history. If you enjoyed this documentary, subscribe and become part of that mission. Leave a comment and tell us which African military leader you want us to cover next. Your comments help shape future episodes. Your support helps keep these stories alive. And every view, every discussion, and every subscription helps ensure that remarkable chapters of African history are not forgotten again. Because preserving history is not only about remembering the past, it is about understanding how the past continues to shape the present. And Shaka's story is proof of that. But Shaka Zulu was not the only military genius Africa produced. Somewhere else on the continent, another ruler was building an empire, commanding armies, and creating a legacy so powerful that distant nations would eventually feel its impact. That story is waiting, and we will uncover it soon. Because Shaka Zulu did not conquer the world. He changed the way warriors imagined it could be conquered.